Amy Andolini prepares her daughter's things. She will be driving Kara to a university in Oregon for her first year in college. Everyone knows that Amy is very close to her daughter, especially since her husband passed away 6 years ago. Now that Kara is starting a new chapter in her life, Amy finds it hard to let her go. As proof, she packs Mr. Hugsy into her daughter's things. It's a teddy bear that has always comforted Kara when she was young, but she has outgrown since. Amy thinks Kara may need it, just in case. She also bakes pumpkin zucchini muffins, a favorite food. Just then, her brother Marcus arrives. He'll take care of the house while the two are in Oregon. And speaking of the house, Marcus informs her about the offer of the real estate agent that has been courting Amy for a while now to sell the property. It's an ideal family home, and will definitely fetch a high price. But Amy isn't ready to let go of the loving memories in that house. She promises to come back here once Kara is settled at university. That's practical and good. But later on, she'll realize that perhaps it may be time to move on. The mother and daughter make their way from Los Angeles to Oregon. When they arrive at the university, they see many parents making sure their children are settling in. It's such a bittersweet moment for parents to see their children move on to the next chapter in their life and to be separated from them for the first time. Amy reflects on this, and that's why she almost drives into someone, if not for Kara warning her. Thankfully, she's driving slowly, so no harm done. Amy notices that the man is wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans and pushing a wheelbarrow full of flowers. But there's no denying his handsome features and charismatic aura. A honk brings Amy back to the present. She continues driving to find a parking space. Using a small trolley, Amy pulls Kara's things into the dormitory, but her tote bag falls to the ground, spilling all its contents. The man from earlier comes to help her pick things up. Kara proceeds to the dormitory, leaving her mother and the man behind. From the start, Amy is obviously enamored by his charms. But this disappears as the man makes fun of Mr. Hugsy. He says parents always have a hard time letting their children go. He's seen it all the time. A bit offended, Amy defiantly says she'll have no hard time, and that he shouldn't be saying those things when he has no kids himself. Then she follows her daughter inside the dormitory. Amy meets her daughter's roommate, Maddie Seaton. She is brought here by her granddad, who enters the room as well. Maddie invites Kara to walk her granddad to his car, and then explore the campus. This leaves Amy alone in the room, contemplating whether she should leave Mr. Hugsy there. In the end, she takes the teddy bear with her. That night, she has dinner with her friends Cheryl and Bert. Cheryl is the director of administration at the university. She is in a pinch because the Harvest Festival is near, but her events coordinator is about to take her maternity leave, and the substitute has taken a permanent position in the tech department. She asks Amy if she can take responsibility for the coming event. Cheryl knows that Amy has always been excellent when it comes to organizing activities and fundraising events. The Harvest Festival badly needs a revamp, because it's been doing poorly for the last 2 years. In addition, the one in charge of the event, Professor Ferris, has always emphasized the harvest part, and not the festival part. Cheryl needs this event to work this year, or else the agriculture department may lose its funding for the campus farm. Amy is hesitant to say yes to this job offer, mainly because she doesn't want to stay in Oregon. She doesn't want her daughter to think that she's not letting her enjoy her independence. But still, she asks her if she can stay. Kara can see that her mother would like to take the job, and will be excellent at it. She is aware that, as much as she needs her independence, her mother also needs to live her own life. So she gives Amy her blessing. Now that she has her daughter's permission, Amy meets Professor Ferris. She is surprised to find out that the professor is the same handsome man she met the other day. His full name is Noah Ferris, an excellent professor in agriculture. His students adore him, and he's passionate about farming. He's also friends with Bert, and together they row on the campus lake when they have time. As Bert always says, Noah hasn't stayed in one place for too long. He's been teaching at different universities, which only adds to his impressive credentials. But because of this, Bert calls him a tumbleweed, never staying in one place for a long time. Amy finds it challenging to convince Noah to collaborate for the event. He is firm about his stance, which is to focus on the harvest part, so that farmers will be highlighted and given the chance to showcase their crops. Plus, if the event is only filled with what he calls pumpkin games, then his department should hardly have any part in it. Fortunately, Amy has a counter-argument. She shows Noah the financial data of the event from the last 2 years. It's been declining. This could lead to losing funding for the campus farm. In addition, people can appreciate the crops more if they can enjoy the event through pumpkin games. Both of them have valid points. To start understanding each other's perspectives, Amy decides to invite Noah to a small-town harvest festival. They try pumpkin bowling, at which they both find out that Noah needs improvement. Amy is better than him. Even a toddler is better than him, who gives him advice on how to handle the pumpkin when bowling. but the professor shows sportsmanship about it and is gradually enjoying the games. Later on, he tells this to Amy. She is glad that he enjoyed the activity. She points out that their campus festival should feel like this, an event where people are having fun and don't even think they're in a fundraising event. The two also take their time to get to know each other. Amy shares her experiences in organizing events at Kara's school before. She expresses her thoughts about doing everything and anything for her daughter, especially after the passing of her husband. On the other hand, Noah reveals that he's from Brooklyn. He attended Stanford University and was supposed to major in finance. But during his freshman year, a friend invited him for a hike in Yosemite, and this changed his lifestyle forever. He fell in love with nature and began developing his outgoing personality. He would travel to different places and discover things he missed out on when he was younger. On the other hand, he admits that every time he sees Bert and his wife settled, it makes him think about settling as well. Amy says it smartly, Noah is not the tenure type. At least not now. After this fun date, Amy settles in at the temporary home that Cheryl provided. She feels at ease with this familiar setup. She occasionally sees her daughter at the campus farm, but she resists calling out on her. She has to remind herself that she's not there to guard Kara, but to organize the festival. She goes to the campus barn, where Noah is arranging some equipment. She tells him about plans of using the barn for some music and dancing. She's considering the band Mercury in Retrograde to play, although she's wary that this may spell disaster. On the other hand, Noah is not supportive of the idea. Barns are where pieces of farming equipment are kept, not a venue for some indie band to play in. Amy assures him they can find a place to temporarily store the pieces of equipment. From their conversation, Noah realizes Amy doesn't really know much about what goes on in farming and harvesting. In return for showing him the festival fun part, Noah invites her to a farmer's market to show her the work behind the harvest part. There, he explains that 80% of the crops sold come directly from the farmers, while the rest are exported. Amy takes this information to learn who can be potential sponsors for the event. Then they see Kara and Maddie behind a fruit stand. Noah says that Maddie's grandfather, Edward Seaton, is one of the primary sponsors of the event. Amy intends to ask him if he can increase his sponsorship. With that cue, Noah and Amy proceed to Seaton Apple Orchard, where they are sure to find Edward. Noah teaches Amy about planting apple trees and their life cycle. He says they need to be planted around fall, due to their need for dormancy. When spring comes, they'll see the saplings starting to sprout, but it will take years of cultivation for one tree to bear fruit. Their conversation has so many analogies in real life. Amy reflects on it, how easy life would be if anyone could live it like a tree, be planted, get watered, and grow. Noah says it's not as easy as that. Some trees take their time to grow. Both are reflecting on how their lives have been. Looking at each other, they understand each other's perspectives. They can feel that something is changing between them, but they need to remind themselves to keep a professional relationship. Next, they proceed to another part of the orchard, where they can pick apples. There, Amy asks Noah if he has plans to change schools, since he doesn't usually stay in one for long. He reveals that he has gotten an invitation to work at the University of Sydney, and he's waiting for a confirmation. Amy is surprised to hear this. Nonetheless, she congratulates him and wishes him the best. After picking enough apples, they go to a barn, where they sort the fruits into crates. Normally, they donate these apples to shelters during fall. Noah gets some crates. That's when Edward approaches Amy and comments on how many apples they've picked. Just as she is about to open the topic about sponsorship, Edward picks up an apple and correctly identifies it as a Honeycrisp variant. Amy is reminded of how she would always make baked apples using Honeycrisps. Edward says he used to eat the sweet dessert, but since his wife passed away, he hasn't had any baked apples. He admits to not knowing whether he has the courage to eat something that reminds him of someone he loves. Amy knows this feeling, as she was in a similar situation before. She shares how she moved on from her husband's passing by busying herself with her daughter's life. Time has helped her cope with it. Then one day, she was doing the things she used to do with her husband, and it didn't hurt as much. Edward reflects on this and realizes he misses his wife's baked apples. So Amy invites Noah to her rented house and asks him to help her bake some apples. Looking at them, it's clear there's strong chemistry between the two of them. From the start, they both have felt a strong attraction for each other. Perhaps it's just a matter of time, and some circumstances, to make them realize that they give each other a purpose in life. For Amy, a reason to move on, while for Noah, a reason to finally settle down. As days go by, Amy and Noah work together to complete the lists of activities for the festival. They also start sharing flyers to inform the public about the upcoming event. As a reward for themselves, they try some cider cocktails from a small coffee shop with an autumn ambience. They are both making good progress, which makes Cheryl impressed. She knows that Amy can pull this event off, but she's amazed at how Professor Ferris is coming along so well with the plans. In addition, Edward Seaton has given an additional $5,000 for the event's funding, which will give a chance for more booths to open up. Amy is grateful for this and says Noah has been a great help. Cheryl points out that her friend has a crush on the professor. Amy reluctantly agrees, then adds she doesn't know how to feel about it. He has his life set out by moving to Australia, while she has to go back to Los Angeles after the festival. But, in the meantime, they need to work together. She needs to tell him about the addition of a corn maze to the activities. She's confident he will agree. But Noah disagrees. He can't let the cornfield be damaged just to create a one-day maze. His students worked hard to plant them. Amy tries to express this plan from another perspective. He can think of it as an early harvest for some parts of the cornfield. Still, Noah refuses to budge. It will be a miracle to pull off a corn maze 2 weeks before the festival. And there's no guarantee all the crops will be harvestable in the end. Frustrated, Amy calls him stubborn. Noah says he's only doing his job as a professor. A stubborn professor, then, Amy says. Someone who doesn't realize that mazes and games and music are the secrets to a successful festival. A few corns may be lost that day, but it will ensure that the campus farm has enough funding. He just needs to think in the long term. Noah is still thinking about what Amy said. As he helps Bert build a bunk bed, he relays his thoughts about the issue. Bert agrees with Amy. In the long time that they have been friends, he hasn't seen Noah give serious thought about the long term, despite saying that he has plans of settling down. Noah insists he does, but he just hasn't found the right reason. Or, perhaps, he just hasn't stayed long enough to see if it's right. He remembers his offer from Australia. Moving there will prove to his friends that he will just keep on traveling to different places. Then he won't find whatever reason he's looking for to put his roots down. But what if he has found a reason? What if he stays long enough in Oregon to see if that person in his mind is good enough for him to settle there? He calls that person to let her know he's apologetic about the conversation earlier. But he finds out that Amy has a cold and is staying in the house to rest. Noah decides to bring her chicken soup, his mother's recipe. After all, Amy has been taking care of other people, so it's time someone takes care of her. He gives her a bowl of soup, then makes sure there's enough logs in the hearth. After this, he apologizes to Amy for being difficult. There's no denying now the feelings they have for each other. Noah feels a compelling reason to stay, to take care of Amy. And Amy secretly wants him to stay. But it's not time, not yet. They still have issues to take care of before finding their place at each other's side. The next day, Noah starts making the maze. He uses a small tractor to cut the plants and lay out the patterns. However, in the middle of the maze, his tractor runs out of fuel. He calls Amy for help. Amy is talking to Kara when she receives his call. She excitedly gets up, and this doesn't pass by unnoticed by her daughter. When Amy gets to the cornfield, she calls Noah to tell her his exact location. They both stay on the phone while he gives her directions. The maze is not yet done, but Amy can see how well it will turn out once it's polished. The maze reflects their lives. There are so many turns to take. At some point, a wrong path offers itself. But eventually, if she keeps on moving forward, if he keeps still long enough, they'll both find each other, exactly at the right moment and the right place. Amy gives the oil to Noah. After starting it up, they both ride the tractor and finish making the maze. After, they go back to the barn to enjoy their little success. Their gestures are so loud one could easily think they're a couple now. But no words have been said between them. They are not yet official. They just let their feelings be visible to each other, just enough for them to know they share something special. Edward Seaton approaches them. Amy expresses her gratitude for the generous investment he's given. She offers him a tour of the corn maze, which he gladly accepts. Noah stays behind to return the tractor. When the two leave, he receives a message from the University of Sydney confirming his application there. He is expected to be there anytime soon. Now this makes things complicated for him. He has to know if he's making the right decision to stay here. The next day, Amy receives a call. It's from the manager of the band Mercury in Retrograde, informing her they won't be available to perform for the festival. She knew it from the start. When a band is named after an astrological movement known for bad communication, it's a sure sign to look for something else. Noah offers to help her look for a replacement. That night, they line up outside a concert hall. But the guard is only accepting private audiences. Then they notice the small coffee shop they went to a few days before. When they enter, they see a small band performing on a makeshift stage. The lead singer is the same waitress that served them their cider drinks. As they listen, they enjoy the music, as well as each other's company. Perhaps they both realize it's the first time they are together in a more cozy situation. Then the band plays a lively country song. Some patrons stand up and dance along to the tunes. Noah invites Amy to dance as well. Even though there is an awkwardness with their movements, they keep on dancing and enjoying the moment. After this lively song, the band plays a mellow sound, something appropriate for lovers and slow dances. Noah and Amy stay where they are and slowly dance to the tune. Or perhaps they are dancing to the rhythm of their hearts. There are no words exchanged between the two of them, but their actions are loud enough to express what they truly feel for each other. They both have concerns that need to be addressed. But for that time, at that place, they allow their feelings to let loose and be known to each other. Noah brings Amy to the entrance of her rented house after their stay at the coffee shop. She has decided to give the band a call for their festival. Noah expresses his gratitude for the time they spent together, and Amy feels the same way. They look at each other, trying to communicate the feelings they harbor for each other. As Noah's face descends on hers, Amy remembers her husband and her reservations about having a new romantic relationship. This stops Noah, although he understands and respects her boundaries. They still say goodbye, more politely this time. But they don't regret what has passed between them in that short amount of time. Amy receives an email from her brother Marcus the next day. It's about the realtor offering a price that she can't refuse. She looks at Noah's picture on her phone and thinks about whether it's worth it to move on. However, she sticks to her initial plan. After the festival, she'll go back to Los Angeles, to her old life, while allowing her daughter to spread her wings independently. She tells this to Noah when they are decorating the barn. She tells him the offer is great, and she has no more reason to stay after the festival. This creates an invisible wall between them. If Amy goes back to Los Angeles, then what will be Noah's reason to stay when he has a good offer in Australia? On the other hand, Amy knows that she's doing what she thinks is right. But why doesn't it feel right? To add to this uncertainty, Cheryl offers her a permanent job as an events coordinator. If she takes this offer, then that means she'll surely sell the house, and it will be worth it. But Noah won't be there. According to Bert, it looks like he's accepted the offer. He's likely to leave after the festival as well. Noah and Amy have a lot of things on their mind as the festival approaches. Their initial closeness seems to have faded away, as they are both faced with their respective issues. If there's one thing that they both feel, it's the uncertainty of whether their feelings for each other can overcome their issues. Kara visits her mother while she's supervising the decorations. She's aware of the offer for their house, since her uncle has told her. She lets her mother know that she's okay with selling the house. She's also okay with her being near. It gives her peace of mind to know her mother is just nearby when she needs support. Amy appreciates this. Her daughter has just given her blessing. The only thing left is whether she's courageous enough to follow her heart. At last, the day of the Harvest Festival has arrived. Everyone is having a blast. The biggest winner is the corn maze, where everyone is simply enjoying the routes, and a little pop quiz every now and then. Amy and Kara approach Noah, who's selling crops to visitors. Noah congratulates Amy for a job well done. He can see now that this festival will ensure enough funding for the agricultural department. Of course, Amy thanks him as well for helping. After all words have been said, they remain a bit awkward with each other. The unsaid words are lingering between them, and Kara notices this. It's obvious to her that her mother likes Professor Ferris. She thinks it's time for her mother to be happy, because she deserves it. But she thinks something is stopping the two from fully committing to each other. Kara finds out what it is when her mother sadly tells her that the professor has been given a job offer in Australia. The band that plays that night is another win for the festival. After the tiring activities of the day, everyone can just relax, dance, or simply enjoy the soothing music. Edward Seaton lets Amy know that he's sold out all his apples and secured more business proposals for his orchard. Amy congratulates them on their fortune. Then she approaches Cheryl and lets her know that she will be accepting the job offer as the events coordinator for the university. Amy recognizes that it's time to move on. Cheryl is so happy about this that she informs her husband Bert. Meanwhile, Kara approaches Professor Ferris. She congratulates him on the job opportunity in Australia, but he corrects her. He says he hasn't officially accepted it, but he's thinking about it. Kara runs to her mother to tell this, just as Bert tells Noah about Amy's acceptance of the job offer. Okay, now everything's laid out and clear. It's up to Amy and Noah to find each other in this maze of people and uncertainties. And they do. They make clear to each other that they have resolved their own issues. Now that's out of the way, nothing's stopping them from finally being true to their feelings. Amy can now move on and make new memories as she starts the next chapter of her life. Noah has finally found his reason to stay and settle down. Both are ready to face their new life together, and they start it with a kiss.